Okay, so I like 40k orcs, and I have a small force, I'd say. But you know what I like more than Warhammer 40k orcs? Old and clunky orcs. So I figured the older orc models deserve some love, and thus wanted to do some research about them. This video will, however, specifically delve deep into the Boyz of 40k, because there's honestly quite a bit to talk about. So to start off, here is the first orc model that I could find, the limited edition 1 Space Ork. Yes, Ork, with a C. I know, this guy is very, very special indeed. Sculpted by Bob Naismith, he sits on top of a weird hexagonal base, which would be characteristic of the first limited edition 2 Space Marine, which got a re-release in 2016. The original was released in 85-86, which would thus predate the Rogue Trader edition of Warhammer 40k. One could also say that there are some similarities in the miniatures, in the slumped over posture, the face, aside from the color and teeth different of course, and those fabulous studded shoulder pads. With Rogue Trader being released in 1987, it didn't take long for the Spaceworks to finally get some models, these guys being featured in a flyer from September the same year. Although most of these guys are just reused versions of each other, just changed around a bit, while others were a bit more special. For example, Fog the Goggler, Smiler Roggett, or Gunk are actually just weapon swaps apart. Although they did have a Robin Hood orc, as seen over here. The following image came from 1988. These had more of a World War II vibe to them, similar to the modern Cromlech Great Cloak orcs, but these were also rather similar, with many of them having simple weapon swaps, and not much else. In 87, we also had a boxed set called the Ork Raiders. Now, this would have been a great get started bundle at the time, as it came with a boss and many different kinds of orcs. And considering that orcs like to hang out with the boys, we got a larger boxed set in 1990 filled to the brim with different boys, including heavy weapons for those pesky Ice Marine! These fellas were featured in White Dwarf 112 in 1989, although I think these might be more towards the knob side of things rather than the boys, but again, it's hard to tell. Here we see some Marauder miniatures. These were published by Citadel and of course advertised in White Dwarf. So Marauder Miniatures was a sort of sub-company of Citadel, but I don't really want to get too deep into the scheme of things here. They also released some miniatures you could use as boys, such as this one. We then move on to the second edition box set, which pitted the Orcs and Space Marines against each other. The box set included a lot of these guys, and by a lot, I mean a lot. And exact carbon copies of each other as well, so there was little to no variance in the minis you got. Although this does make them some of the cheaper 40k orcs that you can buy if you want to build a horde. Same goes with a Gretchen from this box as well. In 1997, just before 3rd edition, this weird game called Gorka Morka came out. These included weirdly sculpted orcs, or by weird I mean in that their proportions were weird compared to the others. And Gorka Morka also of course added the war truck and its many attachments, among other things. Aside from the new plastic orc boys, there were also some new metal ones, some of which carbon copy, but then others with some actual dynamic posing, but of course some mirroring as well. Here we can also see a clear distinction between the metal and plastic kits at the time of Gorka Morka. Although once again there was a lot of variance in the kits, making each and every army very unique, not only in the color scheme but also in the men present. They even produced a bunch of spare parts for you to buy, these being bionics to make cyber orcs. Also, I just want to say that even though Games Workshop doesn't necessarily produce a lot of varied orcs themselves, I don't really think they need to, because most of these orcs, the orcs I've shown you so far, are still very much in proportion with modern orcs and usually fit in rather nicely. Maybe except the Gorka Morka plastic models, they just still look ugly. So basically, Games Workshop doesn't need to make 50 different orcs, because we have the internet now, and can thus vary to our heart's contents, or just kit bash and customize ourselves. For instance, you can still find some of the older Rogue Trader orcs for £2 to £3 each. And then we have another box set with orcs. These once again included Space Marines and orcs, just like back in 2nd edition, but the orcs present, for the most part, actually came out way earlier. In this box, which came out around 1999, well, I couldn't quite track down the date, but this is the date I came up with. Regardless, this kit is still in use today, although the box they are found in has had some changes since then, with minor things taken out or added, such as the boss knob. And this is now the current box you will find your angry green men in, and although it's incredibly old, I still think it holds up rather alright. I mean, it is a classic by now. Anyway, that's everything I had to say about the Ork Boyz. If you have any other suggestions for research projects, especially for 40k, just type them in the comments and I'll try to make at least some of them if I have time. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.